Well, welcome, folks. Brothers and sisters in Yeshua. I'm Dwayne Moore of Biblical Correctness Ministries, and this is the Solemn Assembly broadcast where this is a special gathering for us, especially for me, because I'm very fond of the guest we have tonight. He's been a great inspiration for me, and as I'm sure soon to be famous, work on the comparisons of the Bible with the Constitution. He took me from the kindergarten levels I was at in having seeing the horrendous errors in our national document, and with his amazing, just absolutely amazing academic research, he gave me great hope that I wasn't the only one seeing these many unbiblical issues with our national document. Our guest is Ted R. Weiland, coming back to be with us again after about a year now, where Ted hails from Scottsbluff, Nebraska, coming to join us tonight. Ted, you've been with us before, so most of my folks know who you are, and no real big introductions necessary, but you might want to give a couple-minute background for the few new folks who are not real familiar with your work, just to get us opened up for tonight, if you would.
Okay, well, what do I say here, Dwayne? We minister, as Dwayne has already said, out of Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I've been here somewhere between 20 and 30 years. God has allowed us to start a ministry originally known as Mission to Israel Ministries. We have a website devoted to that. And then in the last probably 3 years, I guess, we have also started a ministry known as Bible Law versus the United States Constitution. We have a website for that, Bible verses spelled out, VERSUS, BibleVersesConstitution.org, by which you can find much of the material we have available regarding that particular subject, and I think that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. I have also written a 565-page book in which I take the Bible as the standard, particularly God's moral laws, His commandments, statutes, and judgments, and examine every article and every amendment of the Constitution by that standard. Ironically, to my knowledge and everyone else that I've spoken to, it took 224 years after the thing was inaugurated and brought into existence for America, for the United States. For someone to finally, and why God chose me, I don't know, other than He chooses the foolish and the weak and such as me. But regardless, it took 224 years for someone to finally examine the Constitution by the standard, by God's morality, the standard by which everything must be, including the Constitution, examined. And it is so ironic that not only have Christians promoted this document as a biblically compatible document, as a Christian document, and even sometimes as a divinely inspired document, not only have they done that, but they've been the biggest promoters of this document. And the fact is, and if you're new to this idea, this will probably shock you, but the fact is the United States Constitution was the worst thing that ever happened to America. There is nothing that has gone wrong today that we don't all know about, whether we're talking about infanticide, whether we're talking about sodomy, whether we're talking about the economy, whether we're talking about Obama or his compadres in Congress, that cannot be laid at the feet of the framers for their failure to establish government and society upon God's law, His morality in particular, as found in His moral triune law, His commandments, statutes, and judgments. That cannot be laid at their feet for their failure to establish government like their forebears did in the 1600s, where we really find our Christian heritage. That's not their fault, and therefore we find ourselves teetering precipitously on the precipice of moral depravity and destruction today. And so that's what that book is about, is examining every article and amendment by the standard. We also have for those who may not be aware of this, I realize that 565 pages of this type of book is a little bit much for the average person to maybe jump into right away, so we reduced it down to an 85-page primer as well, where that deals with, I think, 5 or 6 of the articles and amendments that are the most important ones to deal with. So we have that available, and anyone interested can go to that doesn't have a copy, we will provide a complimentary copy of the 85-page primer to anyone who goes to our website, BibleVersesConstitution.org. If you go to the right-hand sidebar, there is a link to our Constitution survey. And it's just 10 questions. If you'll participate in that, provide your mailing information, we'll provide you, as a result of that, a free copy of the 85-page primer. And by the way, the 565-page, the entire book that deals with all of the articles and amendments is actually all online as well. So you can download it right from there, from your own computer. All of my books, I think, except for one and the curriculum that we recently came out with for the primer, are also all online as well. Anyway, that kind of maybe gets us started there, Dwayne. If you have any more particular questions or anything else you want me to share regarding that, I certainly can.
Well, I think what our folks might be looking to hear, specifically because the folks on my line have been hanging in there with me through a lot of these changes, through these rediscovered truths, including now this stance with those like yourself against the Constitution just recently here. We lost a lot of our people because of this issue, and of course, I'm sure you're much more familiar with this at your end, but as we mentioned the last time, people aren't beating a path to our door to get on board this anti-Constitution bandwagon. So the folks that are on board with us are looking in good directions, but most of them aren't real law scholars either. So that's kind of why you and I work together to get out these shorter versions that we put up on YouTube and on DVD this week. As your full book or your 30-part audio series is a little too much for them. It's sort of like, as the old proverb goes, it's like trying to take a drink from a fire hose for a lot of these guys. So what I think they're looking for, they seem to want to know, what steps do we take? Even after all the law that guys like myself have sifted through for them and have taught them on these calls and what have you, how do these people work alongside of this, changing their whole lives to a biblical law system? Can you try and address that a little bit?
Well, let me start by saying that, first of all, anybody who understands and comprehends what the framers have done to us, and that intend to take it to others, they need to first prepare themselves for what you initially described, and that is not a necessarily positive reaction. As I mentioned to you on the phone earlier today, and as I know you know, Dwayne, and probably they know, your people here know as well, but idols die hard. And this is probably the biggest, I mean, not that we may not personally have our own idols to deal with, and all of us do, of course, but as far as nationally, there is no bigger idol than the United States Constitution, and people just automatically are going to try to protect it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And if you think about it, what a tough job we have before us. In Acts chapter 19, for those familiar with that chapter, it says that when they recognized that Paul was bringing down the goddess Diana, that the Ephesians cried out for 2 hours, "Great is Diana of the Ephesians, great is Diana of the Ephesians." For 2 straight hours they did that. And that's, to me, that was like, wow. I mean, these guys are serious about their God. May Christians maybe get as serious as they are. But with that in mind, do not overlook that it's been 225 years that Americans, and Christians in particular, have been crying out, "Great is the Constitution of the Americans, great is the Constitution of the Americans." So, as amazing as it was for them to do that for 2 hours, how much more so for 225 years, and it really tells us what a job we have before us. And as far as that job, we've just begun. We have just begun, and so, something else that needs to be understood. Somebody, and hopefully somebody's, and I already know there's Dwayne's doing it, and there's others as well, but somebody's got to go through the abuse of taking this thing on. You've got to be prepared to take it on, and somebody's got to take people through that paradigm shift when it's the worst. And right now it's at its worst, because we're just beginning. But the encouraging thing is that we are at, and I think we spoke a little bit of this in the last time I was on with you, Dwayne, and that is that we are at the greatest, what I believe is the greatest paradigm shift at the very beginning, but the greatest paradigm shift America has ever seen, other than possibly when the Puritans and Pilgrims came over from Europe in the 1600s. But I think it's probably even going to be something even much greater than that. But we're just beginning at this, and so somebody's got to take us through that. Now, let me give you, and I don't know that I did this, don't know even know if this was I don't think this was the situation yet, but to reveal, to maybe help us see that we are at the beginning of that paradigm shift, that things are happening. As I mentioned before, it took 224 years for God to find somebody as dumb as me to decide, so he could get all the glory, to write a book that examines the Constitution by the standard, his law. But within a 2-year period, 2 other very significant books also came out after mine. One of them by Gary North, which we may have spoken about previously, which is called Conspiracy in Philadelphia, The Broken Covenant of the U.S. Constitution. A book about as large, pretty close to the same size as mine, and by the way, we also carry that book on our book list for anyone interested. In fact, I think I'm the only one that's even carrying this book at this time. You can also get it through Amazon. Gary North approaches it not so much from a biblical standpoint, although there's lots of Bible in it, but more so from the philosophical, where these framers were at in their mindset, the influences, the Masonic influences, the Enlightenment influences, and all of that, and shows and reveals. It's like a second witness to what we now know from the Scriptures, where the Constitution falls short. However, that wasn't the only book. Another book has come out since, I think, again, we last talked, called The Religious Beliefs of America's Founders, Reason, Revelation, and Revolution, by Greg L. Frazer. Greg Frazer is, Dr. Greg L. Frazer is professor of history at the Master's College in California. I first found him through an interview that Dr. Albert Mohler conducted with him about, I think, 2 years ago, that I had gotten a link to from someone, and I thought, oh great, here we go again. We're gonna get another guy that's gonna promote the founders as some great Christians. And I didn't read but 2 paragraphs, and I dropped my jaw, and I thought, finally, somebody's approaching this in a balanced fashion. And the interview is still available if you Google Dr. Albert Mohler's interview with Dr. Greg Frazer. You'll be able to find a link to that interview, and I highly recommend that you do so. And then it'll also give the means by which to order Dr. Frazer's book. Dr. Albert Mohler, by the way, if you don't recognize that name, and this makes it even more amazing to me, is he is president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and all the more reason why I thought, well, we're just going to get the same old from these 2 guys as you always get. But what Dr. Frazer has did was he took the